Hello and welcome to Signal Lantern, your beacon of freedom in the Northeast. I'm here with Dan Eddy, the Selectboard candidate in the town of Abington, Massachusetts. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Sure, yeah. Gosh, let's see. So much of it kind of ties back to my time in the Marines, and I just can't get away from that. But yeah, so I grew up in Brockton. Some say I survived Brockton. 2005, I went into the Marines. I had always wanted to do that, and on the way here, I was thinking about like, why did I do that? And I remember a conversation I had with my grandfather. I wanted to become a state police officer. That was like my dream as a kid, like seeing those guys and wanting to do that. And the Marines was like almost like a requirement. It certainly helps you now too, for sure. And so I did that, and I left in 2005. With no real plans to make a career out of it. I was initially infantry. I guarded nuclear weapons or strategic weapons in Washington State. And then I volunteered to become a bomb technician because I ended up on the SWAT team, and I was the breacher. So I got to use explosives to breach things, and it was like, this is really cool. And so I volunteered to become an EOD guy, and that was amazing. So in like '08, I went to school for a year in Florida for that. '09, I graduated, got stationed in Lejeune, North Carolina. That's where my accent, I had to lose my accent. Like I had a Boston accent. I swear to God I did. But everyone thought I had an attitude problem because of the accent. Like, oh, Eddie wants to fight. Like I don't, so it was North Carolina, and the fact that I had to get rid of the accent really helped. Although if I do have enough drinks, it'll come out.
It'll start coming back.
It'll definitely come out. And so yeah, '09 I got stationed there, and in 10 I deployed to Afghanistan as a bomb technician. My first deployment ever, and that was a pretty wild time. I was only there actually 90 days, but I managed to drive over an IED, and I blew my truck up with my teammate in it. Luckily it was not a Humvee, it was a big truck, and so we were okay after. And then I deployed again in 2011 for a much longer deployment, and much hairier location. And then in 2014, I was getting bored. I was still a bomb technician, but the deployments were really slow.
Right.
And I volunteered to come back to Boston to be a recruiter. Really hard job, but I love the idea of like coming back home. And you only get to kind of pick your region. So I got to come back to New England, and from there, they got to decide where I would go. Initially, I had orders to Bangor, Maine, which I was born in Maine initially, but Bangor is like way up Maine.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like I had to look it up. Like, oh my gosh.
I was gonna say, are you recruiting moose?
Yeah,
up,
it's
up
like
there.
that's like almost Canada. And yeah, those guys were driving hours to just have a meeting with somebody. Fortunately, they last minute changed my orders to downtown Boston, and so I became a recruiter in the Tremont Street office, which is no longer there. They moved it, but and I lived in East Boston. Well, actually, I moved to the Shoe Lofts in Rockland initially, and I was never there because recruiting is the hardest job in any of the military branches. Like, this white hair is from recruiting, 100%. Like,
not from EOD,
not from disarming bombs. No, it is 100%. And I actually thought it was going to be like, I thought that the white hair was coming from my ex-wife, which we're really good friends now. But at the time, it was kind of stressful. No, it was recruiting for sure.
Wow.
Really stressful. And so I was like rarely ever in the Shoe Lofts apartment. I met my wife while I was recruiting at the end of 2014. She's from California, works for JetBlue. And in 2015, I don't know if you remember, we had like 130 inches of snow, like over like three, like right now, like we had all this snow outside.
I remember that was my senior year in high school.
It was awful. And I like, that was her first like true winter
Right.
from Cali to here. And I'm like, babe, listen, it's not like this. This is not normal. Please stay. Don't leave. And she didn't. But the next year we had like no snow. And I was like, well, it's not actually like this either. So like, don't get your hopes up for the rest of the time. But we ended up moving together in East Boston in an apartment, which is great. I mean, I had that experience of, I never thought I would be in uniform as a Marine on the subway, like going to work, which was kind of wild for me. But yeah, we did 3 years or so of that. And in 2019, I wanted to move back to the South Shore. And we had looked at a number of houses, but it really was like Whitman, Abington, Rockland area, not Brockton. That it was affordable in Brockton, but like you could like the house prices were never really going up. Like it was all kind of pretty stagnant. And so we found a house in Abington. It was like perfect location. I was so familiar with it. Like this store Stones. It's no longer, it's Route 18 Superstore, and those guys are great. It's like 2 houses away from me, which is great and also bad at the same time, because I can just walk up there and get like a 6-pack or ice cream or like all the things. But yeah, so we ended up here in Abington in 2019. So, yeah.
So I mean, what do you do for work now?
So 6 years of recruiting in the Marines, it's all sales. Like it's like selling the dream. It's telling a story. And that set me up for software sales. So I ended up meeting somebody at a bar, like no kidding. I met them there and networked, and they ended up getting me a job in software or construction technology. And so ever since 2019, when I got off active duty, I've been selling software for like big construction projects.
Honestly, that's you have a very storied life.
It's pretty wild. Yeah.
God. So I mean, I guess the obvious transition is how did that then turn into you becoming interested in, local politics?
I think when I got my first property tax bill was probably when I was like, who decides this stuff? That's probably where it started. And then I started to research it a little bit, and you can complain all you want about something, but unless you're going to actively do something to change it or influence it or support it, then all you're doing is complaining. And so I actually pulled papers for a select board position in 2020, I think was the year. And it was I would be running against Alex Haggerty. And when I realized how popular Alex Haggerty is, I was like, I'm not going to.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not touching that one.
I don't stand a chance against Alex. So I actually never got all the signatures for it. And then I said, okay, well, what else could I do to not only get involved, but learn? That was a big thing for me. It's like, I have no idea at the time how a town even operates. Like, How do they get money? How do they spend the money? Who decides that? And I had initially looked at the Board of Health. I think they had pissed me off about something, and I was like, I'm going to get on that board. And at the time, but then I figured the finance committee, I'd learn a lot more about the inner operations of the town, and so I had reached out to Sean Riley and asked to be considered for an appointment to a position there. And so in 2020, I was brought onto the finance committee, and it was right in COVID, so a lot of our meetings were virtual initially at the time.
Okay. So that kind of, moves into now. Now you're going all in, you're running for the select board, you got all your signatures in, and so it's 3 people going for 2 seats.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of made that decision to try again, I guess, for the select board?
Gosh, let's see. So, I spent 4 years on finance committee. I loved it. Matt Sala is a treasure to this town. We can never lose him. And hopefully I think everybody tries to talk him into running for board of selectmen, but like he does a great job chairing that finance committee. And it was tough for me to leave, but I could tell I couldn't give it everything after 4 years. And my wife and I have 3 little ones, and I think we were like 3 months away from our youngest being born, and with like a new job and all the things, and so I had to step away from the finance committee. And when what really inspired me to look at the board of selectmen, not aside from like the fact that I looked at it years prior, but the town manager search committee and how that whole thing happened, that I didn't love it. I didn't love how it looked from the outside. Like everything was on par with how the charter was written and how they made up the committee, but like I think everybody could tell that it was kind of weird, and I didn't like that. And then when 3 positions opened up, we had one that one resigned, and then 2 decided not to run anymore. Obviously it's their decision to do that, and I'm sure it's a very personal decision. But to have 3 out of 5 openings, that was also weird. So I wanted to make sure that it was an opportunity to put my hat into the ring, and I was talked into it. So
that seems to be a common sentiment. So I mean, well, why did you end up running for the 3-year seat rather than say the 1-year seat?
Great question. 2 reasons. Ken is an immovable force. I don't think anybody could beat him. And then 2, I didn't want to have to campaign again in a year. So,
well, I mean, it would have given you a good opportunity to see, what 1 year in it is. I mean, I haven't gotten the opportunity to get Ken on camera yet, but I did speak with him last night, and he was saying that he ran for the 1 year just to kind of get back into the swing of things. That's why he was running. But you're the second person, because I just spoke with Wendy on my podcast too, and she was like, "Oh yeah, no one's beaten Ken."
Yeah,
so everybody just basically saw Ken was running for the 1 year, and they went, "Nope, I'm not touching that."
Yeah, so Ken gave you a very polite answer. I think he chose the 1 year to give other folks the chance to compete against one another for the other 2. He probably won't say that, but I think there was certainly a thought process of his for that. And like being my first time in the potentially in that board of selectmen seat, a year I don't think is long enough to even know what you're doing. Like I would go on that board as the junior member, trying to figure all the intricacies out. So I just it's funny, I watched the finance. I woke up Thursday morning, or I woke up early. I've got a gym in my garage, and I was like, let's see what's on YouTube. And Abcam showed up with Matt Sala and the finance committee from the night before, and I was like, I'll just play this while I'm working out. And it was like a crazy meeting where they were like figuring things out for the first time, and it was pretty wild to watch. And I had posted that on Life at Abington, because it was I had learned from it. Like I had talked about the override process incorrectly because I thought it was a certain way, and finance committee was finding out, just like as I was in that moment, that it's not that way. And so I wanted to make sure like it was corrected for folks that are paying attention. And I was reached out to by one of the board members just to give me some more information on it, which was super helpful. But it's like that was an example of like showing up on the board as a new member, not knowing the intricacies or the details or the processes or the things that have to happen. And so that whole first year would be such a learning experience that it would be tough to then have to campaign all over again for it. So
yeah, taking that first step into politics is always difficult because you do have to learn the lay of the land. But I think a lot of it too also has to do with your I guess your colleagues would be the appropriate term, the other people on the board, how willing are they, to help explain things to you,
Yeah.
work with you? I mean, Nicole Emery, who just won in November,
Mhm.
she got her seat and she went into that and just immediately started, hammering them with questions and learning. And now she seems to be pretty solid in there after only about 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think that also has that would have a lot to do with it. But, given that Ken has the prior experience, the 1 year term probably is the better one for
Yeah.
him. So and the override thing has been the big topic of discussion. And yeah, the serious confusion on how it actually works for Abington. I mean, I I had somebody from finance committee actually explain it to me, and I'm still confused.
Recently or
Yeah, like a couple nights ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Was it after Wednesday?
It was actually on Wednesday night, like after they had finished their
After the
committee.
meeting? Okay.
Yeah, I saw him
because they learned a few things.
Yeah, I know. I spoke with him a little bit after
Yeah.
the meeting, and he was explaining it, and I'm like, I'm so lost.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I found out is it's not like a fault of anybody's. When was the last time we had to do an override in Abington? I don't even think they could figure that out in that meeting. And a lot of the towns, there's like 40 plus that are having to do it. And so it is a lot of like reaching out to other towns and finding out like how they're doing it, or reading the booklet, or referring back to council. But like, you don't want to spend too much time with council because that costs money. And so it has been a process to make sure you're doing it correctly. I think the challenge is that when everything happened, right? Like Scott leaving, and I love Scott. Got along with him really well over the years when I was on FinCom. Obviously, he took a better opportunity somewhere else, but then we had to find a new town manager. By the time he's in place, now we've got a new board almost, all lining up to a town meeting and a special election. And so like all these things kind of had to happen in a really tight period, which created the environment for the confusion that we're experiencing right now. So I think one of the things I'd like to do is document all of this somewhere. So that way when if it does happen again in the future, we know what we need to do. Because what I've realized is you need 35 days of notice for a special election, but it's like 2 weeks after the town meeting, and you can't cancel it. Like once it's been notified, or once like ballots go out, like early vote, you can't cancel it. It has to happen. So it's a learning experience, I think, for everybody. So hopefully we do learn from it, document it, and so that way if there's ever a situation in the future, which I hope not, then we're able to do it correctly the next time. So,
Well, I mean, yeah, the whole override thing is an absolute mess. And I mean, when I was talking to Wendy, she was talking a lot about, how can the town find ways of, maybe making some money, proper places to downsize, to kind of help get the budget a little bit under control, to avoid this kind of thing again next year. I mean, did you have any ideas on how they might be able to do that?
The way towns make money is taxpayers, whether it's residential or commercial. That's the biggest way. There are other receipts that come in, like ambulance receipts and things like that, but it's minuscule in comparison to the levy that we get from the taxpayers. And so there's not a lot of options aside from growing that base. You grow your residential tax base, or you grow your commercial tax base. Or if we're talking operational, then you cut expenses. And that's kind of where we're at right now. That's what the override is all about, is do we cut expenses, or do we increase the ability to tax more? Because what I've learned is that the override it's not about increasing taxes. It's about allowing us to collect the taxes higher than the 2.5% that we're technically allowed to each year, right? So And I've talked to folks, and I think that's what's important, is figuring out what Abington wants. Like, do we want to continue growing so that way we can increase our tax base and we can increase the services and everything that we have? Or do we want to remain, a small town feel that we might still have? Because I don't know that we still feel like a small town. I don't know that you can have both. And that's what we really need to figure out as a town, like coordinating with the townspeople and the town planner and say, hey, listen, do we want to continue growing, or do we want to push back against all this development? And I see more people wanting to push back against development than not. Now, does that have to do with the town feel, or does that have to do with water accessibility? I think it may be a mixture of both. But I think majority of the town wants to stay about the size that we are versus growing and continuing to grow, revenue.
I think, well, to kind of go on to that point, I think a lot of it has to, there's a lot of different variables. Like, yeah, there's the whole issue with our water is a continuous mess, because I live in Abington. I know exactly, what you're getting at with the water issue. But it's like, yeah, there's the water that's a mess, and more people means more water, which is not going to be helping the situation. And, then it's also the whole fact of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
We have that nice big school, but if we start bringing in more people, that means that class sizes are going to increase. That means that teachers are going to be even more outnumbered than they already are, or we have to hire more teachers or potentially expand the school, which that lot is pretty, it's not really ripe for expansion, of that school. So then that turns into, okay, well, we got a bunch of people. Now we have to build another school to kind of add on to the list, or then, increased traffic. We already have Route 18 running right through Abington, and the traffic on that is already a mess. So now if we have higher population, so I'm just saying there's a lot of different factors that go into it. It's not just the water.
Yeah.
Because I definitely will call myself out. I fall into let's kind of keep it the way that it is.
Yeah.
Camp. And I mean, if that means that taxes have to go up a little bit, obviously I don't want that at all as a resident, but if they have to go up to make up for it, then they have to go up to make up for it.
Yeah, or in that scenario, then we have to cut somewhere, So, like, money for towns, if you look at town as a business, the product they're selling is all of the services provided, and the people that pay for that product are the townspeople with taxes. Right. Yes, there's a commercial base to it, but we're too small for that. I've just kind of pushed that to the side. So in order to make more money, we'd have to get more people in to then pay more, and then we provide them more services. So then the costs will go up. So we'd get more revenue, but then we'd have to provide more services, and then so then we're in a perpetual growth pattern. And that's what happens to most towns, unless you purposefully stop it. Right. And it's not up to any board to decide that. It's up to the town to decide, how we want to approach that.
So is there anything in particular that, you would want to try to accomplish if you're elected?
I would say, so this is something I was researching when I was on the finance committee. So veterans in the town can get a tax abatement for property taxes based on your disability rating, which is great. I didn't know about it for years, just because I didn't pay attention to it. But I think last year might have been the first time I submitted for it. And it's fairly easy. You submit paperwork that, prove whatever the criteria is, and you get like an abatement on your tax. I'd love to do that for the senior citizens that we have in town. I've got like libertarian undertones in me, and I hate that we pay taxes in general. Hate it.
Right.
But I also recognize that there's a necessity for now. I think we should all look to Florida and see what they're doing, and see how we can replicate that. But I especially hate it when the concept of having paid taxes for 30 plus years, and then you own your home, for example, but you're still having to pay rent essentially to live in your home. That drives me, the concept of that drives me crazy. So I would love to get to a point where there's certain criteria for senior citizens within Abington that if you fit that, then you can apply for X amount of dollars off of your tax bill. To, maybe we can get to like the whole thing. That would be great too for them. But in order to do, and I genuinely like want to do that in these 3 years, like I'm going to put it on my top of my list to figure that out. But a big part of that is figuring out the budget, because if we take away that tax revenue, we've got to find it somewhere else, whether it's in cuts or in additional taxes elsewhere. But I do think it's really important to relieve that pressure off of our senior population in the town.
Yeah, especially considering a lot of them are on fixed income.
Right.
And as taxes continue to go up, but their fixed income isn't going up.
Right. Yeah.
How are they supposed to keep up with that? And I know exactly what you're referencing. Governor Ron DeSantis said something like, you buy a TV, you pay your taxes right there on it. You don't get taxed for the entire time you own it. Right. Why is it that when you buy a house, you got to pay taxes on it for the rest of the time you own it?
Because we let it happen.
Exactly. It's like houses and cars are the two that immediately come to mind of like, why are we continuing to pay taxes for the entire time we own it?
Yeah.
Why not just at point of sale?
You bring up cars. The thing that makes me the most mad about that is the inspection stickers.
Oh my God, do not get me that could be an entire episode in and of itself of just me ranting about inspection stickers. That up until New Hampshire just did away with their state inspection system, only 14 states had state inspections on their vehicles.
Yeah. Yep.
Now it's down to 13.
And
we need to get that down to 0.
Well, the argument is that it's for safety. And of course, like you can make that argument and get people to vote for it. But once you started making it so, for example, I may or may not have a 1 on my inspection sticker outside right now.
Right.
But if I go and get inspected right now in almost April, it wouldn't be a 4.
It'd be a 1.
Because it's a money grab. They want that money. They mark that revenue they know all the vehicles that need to be inspected on that month. And that's what and then the worst part is that it doesn't, the argument too is that, it's going to go to roads and like improvements and all. It doesn't all go to that. It all goes to the main fund and then it gets divvied out. And that's the same. And I bring this all up because that's actually another thing that bothered me about our budget system. And it's not just our town, I think it's pretty much practice in general, is if you come in under budget as a department, that extra money it gets set off into free cash.
Right.
And then the town manager and then the town can decide what to do with that free cash. So there's not a lot of incentive for a department to be efficient with their budget because you lose that money. And that's been a government thing, like even in the Marine Corps, like come October or come September 25th, before the fiscal year of October 1st, we're trying to spend all the money we can, because if we don't spend it, we lose it. And I just don't like that mentality.
Yeah, the entire idea that, you didn't spend the entirety of the budget, therefore what you did spend is now your budget for the next year. It's like, no, we could have just had a really clean year where we didn't have to buy replacement things, but then again, I know the Marine Corps is the only branch that can actually pass a financial audit.
It helps that they're the smallest branch, I guess. But, yeah.
I know. Ever since they got rid of their tanks, they could give everyone night vision.
That was a sad day. I was there for that. The tanks going away.
When the Marine Corps lost their tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very sad day.
It did slow us down, though. I get that. We got to be fast, amphibious. There's nothing amphibious about a tank.
Weren't there some tanks during World War II that were amphibious? I think we could get back to
We still have Amtrak.
Yeah, I know. We still get the Amtrak and stuff. But come on, you need some mobile firepower and some armor.
I know.
No, that's a whole nother... I'm an armchair historian.
Yeah.
But either way, no, I mean, it's nice and refreshing to hear that, someone else, the taxes should not be.
We're in a tough state for that.
It is. We're in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So And it seems like every day the state's trying to increase something. But no, I mean, kind of getting a little bit towards the end here. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to say to the voters to kind of convince them that you're the right choice?
Convince. That's not the right word.
Come on, you're in sales. Sell yourself. You're the product.
No, I mean, I don't want to convince anybody. I think
you guys are being way too humble. Wendy was doing the exact same thing.
Was she? I don't know Wendy personally, but I've heard good things about her. It's not about convincing. I think what's really bothering me about politicians across the board, from like selectmen on up, is that they forget who they represent. It's not about how I feel. It's not about what I think or how I would vote personally. You can't forget that you represent everyone in the town. And so if I talk to 100 people about one topic and 88 of them say one side of it is what they would prefer, even though I'm on the 12 side of things, I need to vote on the 88 side of things. Like, that is what we're there for, to represent the majority of the town. It's not a personal thing. So I just want to reiterate that. I've had some folks reach out to me. One guy in particular sent me an email, said, "Do you have a business in town?" And I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "Good. I want to make sure that you're not trying to do this just to get connections or whatever, improve your business, because he's just, whatever he's experienced, he's been pretty salty about in the past." And we just need to get away from that. Transparency is what you'll get from this new board. I think whoever, out of the three, so myself, Wendy, and Bill, plus you got Paul and Nicole and then Ken, and that whatever the makeup of that board is, you're going to have a transparent board that's going to meet in the evenings. I know this for a fact. I don't know the time exactly, but they're certainly going to move that just to allow folks to engage a lot more. I've already seen Nicole super active on Life in Abington, where other folks would just ignore it, or they might probably see everything but not necessarily provide information. And she's provided links to budgets that I didn't even know were on the website, and I was on finance committee. So there's just going to be a level of transparency that the town hasn't experienced, and hopefully they see that as a positive, and actually get more involved. There's 14,000 of us in here. Having 200 that come to town meeting is wild. There should be a lot more than that come to town meeting, because it's important stuff that comes up there. So yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much, but transparency and get yourself involved is kind of what I'm looking for. So
hey, that's fantastic, and that's the message that I've been trying to spread. More people need to get involved.
Yeah.
And that's why the organization that I'm a part of, Keepers of the Revolution, we're trying to get more people involved, and let's get that energy and direct it.
Yeah.
So, well, do you have anywhere if people wanted to reach out to you, chat with you? Do you have a Facebook page, a email, a website? What do you?
Yeah, I didn't want to create a campaign Facebook page, because it's not real. You can reach out to me on my Facebook page. That's totally fine. You can see all the things I've posted, and that's totally fine. Or DanielJamesEddy.com is my website that has a bunch of information, and then that's where folks have actually been going to send me emails, which is really nice, because it comes right to me and I can respond right away. So yeah, DanielJamesEddy.com is probably the best way to do it.
Okay. So. Well, I really appreciate you, coming on, giving me the time, and, just having this talk. Again, it's always important to be able to let people, see their politicians, understand that they're human, just like them, and especially on town level elections, like you said, you had the one person, I don't want a business owner in the select board just for their own interests. So,
right.
This kind of conversation is really important. Thankfully, Abington does have, Abington Cam, Abington News, but a lot of other towns don't have that luxury. So
That's a good point. Yeah.
so yeah, this is kind of
Yeah.
our way of letting anyone from anywhere get their voice out.
Yeah. No, I
You
appreciate
know, and
that.
be heard.
Yeah.
So
You go out of your way to do that. That's really helpful. And it's a cool spot too.
yeah, it's a nice studio. But,
Yeah.
all right, well, we're gonna wrap that up here. If you guys enjoyed this podcast episode, make sure that you share it around with all your friends. The Signal Lantern podcast is an independent podcast. So, you know, it's all funded by us. So sharing this around helps get the word out. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you.